Communication is key. It's one of the most important ways we share ideas, learn, and grow. What's just as important, though, is how we communicate. And lately, there's been a major rise in video conferencing online. Many families, schools, universities, and hospitals have all been using video conferencing to share ideas and information. But along with this technology comes the duty to use it responsibly. Not only in what information is shared, but also what platform is used to share it. Not all apps are created equal, and not all of them have our best interests at heart. So, how do we go about communicating responsibly? Let's talk about that. Grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. I'm Father Jim, and I'd like to talk to you today about a free and open source software solution for video conferencing called Jitsi Meet. Now, Jitsi Meet works very similarly to some of the other popular video conferencing platforms like Skype or Google Meet or even Zoom. But it's really about Zoom that I wanted to focus some of our attention, because within the last month or so, since more and more people have been using the platform, we have seen some serious privacy concerns and security vulnerabilities. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the articles that have been written about this. And we'll begin with a brief look at Zoom as a company. Over here on wikipedia.com, we can see that Zoom got started in 2011 by Eric Yuan, who was a Chinese immigrant to the United States, who, when he got here, did not speak any English, but knew how to develop software. So worked for Cisco WebEx, which is another popular telecommunications online video conferencing company. And eventually, he and 40 other software developers created the company Zoom and their own video conferencing app. This grew, obviously, until recent times, and most especially during the last few months because of the pandemic. Many more people were using Zoom, and because of that, that also helped to reveal some of the security vulnerabilities in the software. And what sorts of vulnerabilities are we talking about here? Well, over on Nation and State, there's an article that was written in early April that says a watchdog group, Citizen Lab, recently examined Zoom's encryption during multiple test calls in North America, where they found keys for encrypting and decrypting meetings were transmitted to servers in Beijing, China. The report stated that Zoom used non-industry standard cryptographic techniques with identifiable weaknesses. So what is all this about? Let's kind of deal with some of the jargon here. Basically, the encryption used to keep conferences private was subpar. And not only that, they were sending to servers in Beijing, China, the keys to encrypt and decrypt those meetings. Could those keys have been intercepted? If so, could those meeting rooms have been broken into? Could people have been eavesdropping in on private conversations? I want you to consider who are using Zoom right now. Many government, local, and state officials are using Zoom to have private communications. Are they really as private as they should be? I don't think that's the case here. And here's what they go on to say. An app with easily identifiable limitations in cryptography, security issues, and offshore servers located in China, which handle meeting keys, presents a clear target to reasonably well-resourced nation-state attackers. Now, maybe it's not possible for the average hacker to get into a Zoom meeting, but for those hackers who work for nation states that have all kinds of money and quantum computing and everything else that can break into different types of encryption very easily, yeah, they have ways of getting into those conversations. So if they're able to identify who is having a meeting at what time, and they're able to get into there and listen, well, that's a security problem. That's a major national security problem. So it's something we should certainly consider. Now, I understand many people might say, well, I don't have anything to hide. I'm just having a conversation with my family or my classroom or whatever. Yeah, that's fine. But we're talking on a national level where government officials could potentially have their private information being stolen. Not only that, with respect to these privacy issues, this is how the company responds. This is over here on the street, written the beginning of April as well. It says here that the Zoom CEO and founder Eric Yuan recently dumped 38 million of the company's stock ahead of an investigation into security breaches at the video conferencing company. Not just him, but several other senior executives sold millions of dollars worth of their shares, all because there is going to be a security and privacy audit. That's somewhat troubling, don't you think? I mean, I understand maybe it is an opportunity for them to cash in on the recent business that they acquired through the pandemic. Okay, but even that seems strange to me. Do they know something that we don't? You know, is there something else going on behind the scenes here that would cause them to want to cash out and, you know, take this opportunity for extra millions? I don't know. But definitely something to consider. Here's something else to consider. Researchers have also identified vulnerabilities in the company's Windows app that could allow attackers to steal login credentials. Now, I know this was a month ago, but nevertheless, even though they have, you know, quote unquote, addressed the issue, the way they addressed the issue of Zoom bombing, where hackers would get into a Zoom conference and put up bad images and profanity and things like this within the conference, the way they dealt with that was making it the default for every room to have a password. Okay, that's not really a hard thing to do. Most software that, you know, that's not a hard thing to do. I don't know that that addresses the security problems. I don't know that that addresses sending keys to decrypt and encrypt to China. I don't know that it addresses that. And nobody really does, because the software is closed source. It doesn't, you can't see the code. We don't really know what's in it. All we can do is trust that the CEO who sold off millions of shares before an investigation is telling us that it's safe, that it's fine, that it's secure. I mean, that's it. That's all we have to go off of. So I present this so that you can make up your own mind, okay? One last thing that I'll mention here, and this is certainly with respect to the CEO, is, and not just Eric Yuan, but several others here. This is over on Yahoo Finance. CEOs publish open letter on reproductive rights and abortion. And it says here that nearly 200 CEOs have signed an open letter that opposes any restrictions to reproductive health care and specifically abortion. Of course, along the list of those names is Eric S. Yuan of Zoom. So this is somewhat concerning too as a Catholic, because now we're looking at the profile of a person who is running a company, albeit a successful company. They did a great job. They built software that's functional, that's easy to use, and has grown in popularity. And they've had a huge boom in numbers of people using the product and purchasing added capacity so that they can have large numbers of people in a single chat room. All of that's great. But what they've chosen to do, in light of some of the recent security vulnerabilities, and also given the fact that, you know, this is someone who supports openly abortion, I think we may want to pursue an alternative means of communication online. You know, there's many other choices available. Perhaps it's time for us to go ahead and hang up on Zoom and pick up on something else. So where are we to go? Meet Jitsi, or I should say Jitsi Meet. This is a free and open source software solution for video conferencing. And what's great about it is it's free and open source. Well, what's great about that? Should go without saying. It's free. So first part, doesn't cost anything. Second part, it's open source, meaning you can go to GitHub, which is a very popular software repository where developers store their code. And you can take a look at all of the code that runs Jitsi. So all of these links here, these are just different links to the software code for Jitsi. And if we look at the top, we can see how many commits they've had, meaning how many times someone has added to the code. And then we can also see how many releases they've had, how many compiled versions of the software have been developed and produced. And then we can also see how many contributors have over the years added to this, over 200 contributors. So what this amounts to is a whole community of people who are developing this software together, and they're doing it in a free and open way. There's a certain altruism that comes with this, and the best part about it is because the code is public and open, you can examine it, you can inspect it, and many people who do are able to identify any vulnerabilities or security flaws that need to be patched, and that is patched very quickly. So this is one of the most secure video conferencing platforms available. So are you ready to see Jitsi in action? Let's do it. Navigate over to meet.jit.c. This is one of the free servers that are available right now, sponsored by 8x8, which is a server management company. They provide server backbones for major companies and data centers and whatnot. So they're donating their servers right now during the pandemic so that people can take advantage of Jitsi. And to use Jitsi is very simple. All you have to do is pick the name of your Jitsi conference, and they provide automatic names for you by stringing together random words. They do this because since so many people are using the same server, if you use the common phrase or something, it's very possible that you may enter into somebody else's chat room. So they provide these automatic names, which you can choose for yourself if you want, or you can change it up and use something completely different. I'm just going to go ahead and go with this one, Fragile Buddies Reply Cheaply. We'll click on Go. And the next thing is Jitsi will need to use our microphone and camera. So you should see a little window that pops up and says, would you like to allow permission to use camera and microphone? Just click on Allow, and that will give permission for Jitsi to turn on your camera, as you see here. And I have already, in the bottom right-hand corner, this little menu that pops up that tells me the link for this meeting. So all I have to do is copy this little link and email that to my friends or the meeting participants, and when they follow that link, they'll enter into this chat room just like we did, only they won't have to do anything else, like type any names in. The names are already in the link. So they just click on the link and this opens up, and then you should be able to see each other. That's simple. Now, the only downside of this right now is the fact that this room is wide open. So if somebody were to guess the same exact words, Fragile Buddies Reply Cheaply, and jump into this room, we would be having, well, we would be getting bombed by somebody else. Maybe not, not somebody who's doing anything nefarious, but just, they have access to this room because it's wide open. There's no password. But it's so simple to set a password. All you have to do is click Add Password, and then you can type in any password you want. Something secure, I would recommend uppercase, lowercase, but something easy enough for your meeting participants to type in. So don't make it so complicated that it's difficult, okay? Once you've entered your password, you hit enter, and now what you can do is click on copy, and that will copy the entire block of information, the link, the phone number, and the password, so that you can go ahead and email that to your meeting participants. And then anybody who comes to this chat room will have to type in this password. All right. Now, do keep in mind, if this room is vacated, like the last person leaves this room, the password goes away. So there will be no more password for this room if it's vacated. So just keep in mind that you'll need to stay in here until everybody else gets here. If you're going to do something like schedule your meeting in advance, maybe you want to pick your meeting name, make sure it's really unique, pick your password in advance, and then the moderator of that meeting can get there about 10 or 15 minutes early, type in the password so that everybody else who is trying to get into the same room will have to type in that password. What that does is effectively keep out anybody you don't want to be a part of the meeting. So that's pretty interesting, huh? And that's all you have to do, really. If you want to take advantage of some of the other features of Jitsi, there's a lot more that you can do on the public server. So I'll just go over some of the features that I really like. First of all, I like the fact that you can mute and unmute your microphone. I mean, this is a very basic thing, but you can also select different microphones. For instance, if I had been wearing my headset, okay, this is the kind of thing that you want to be able to change the audio to work here and also the microphone to work here. So you would just click the little down arrow here and you can go ahead and pick which microphone is best for your setup. All right, and there should be a little green bar going by so that you know which one is being used. The other thing is, if you need to change your camera, you can do that here too. So if you have an external webcam because maybe the webcam in your laptop's not that great and you got a second one because you want a better quality, well, just make sure you select the right webcam here. The other thing you can do is click on the three dots here and click on settings. And that will allow you to change the same stuff here, including your audio output. So if you want to go to the headset instead of the laptop speakers or the desktop speakers, you would change that right here and set that to the correct one. And all this happens in real time. It just automatically switches. So if you're wearing your headset, you'll immediately hear if there's been a change. So that's one really great feature of using this. It makes it super easy for you to change. And why would you want to use a headset? I mean, very simply, using a headset it gives you the ability to isolate the sound in your headphones. That way, if you have a microphone that may pick up your speakers, you reduce the opportunity for echo to happen, because that's something that will make for not a good experience within the meeting. Some other things you can change are your profile. You can set your display name. You can update your calendar information here if you want to sign in with your Google Calendar or your Microsoft Calendar. Again, this is on the public server, so you can do that there. The other thing you can do is change the language for your menus. So if you want that to a different language, you could do that. Moderators could go ahead and start the meeting with everybody muted if they chose. So this way you avoid interruptions from people who may be coming late or something like that, especially if they have a noisy background, then that may help to reduce any type of interruption that takes place. Other than that, you have all your basic features here. You can also share your screen, which is great. There's a number of different ways you can share your screen. You just click on the little screen icon in the bottom left here, and you can share your entire screen, or you can share an application window, which is great. You can see I got my video editing software here. And then you can also share a tab. So if I only want the meeting participants to see one tab of my internet browser, for instance, if I have like a picture there, or if I have some text there that I want to share, then I can put that up. And it just mutes the screen, turns off the video camera and puts up the other one. So I found that to be really nice, because if you want to be able to do other things like behind the scenes, then you can do that. What else do we have here? If you have several people, if you're doing a classroom situation and you want people to be able to raise their hand, you can just tell them to click on the little hand icon here, and it puts that little blue hand in the top corner of your image. So that's a nice feature too. So people who want to raise their hand, they have to ask a question or something like that, they can do this. Another thing is the chat room. So you could post links there and ask questions, have people respond to questions that you ask, give a thumbs up, whatever you'd like. So that's all basic features of Jitsi. Some of the more advanced features here, if you click on the three dots, you can manage your video quality. So if you're on a slow connection, like Wi-Fi connection that's causing a lot of stuttering, maybe you can try lowering to standard definition or even low definition so that you have a better experience on Jitsi. The other thing that we have here is the ability to start a live stream. Now, if you want to connect your entire conversation with your YouTube account, for instance, and live stream this whole thing, that is definitely a possibility. That's a more advanced feature, but it's definitely there. The other thing that you can do is record the session. So if you want to record this and then later be able to watch it, play it back, that's a great feature to have built in too. The other thing is to share a YouTube video, and this is probably something that may be actually quite common for people. They want to share a video, but if you've ever shared one from your computer to the rest of the group, sometimes the audio is choppy or the video is very stuttery, and that's a problem. So what Jitsi provides is a way to make that streaming centralized. So in other words, if you click on share a YouTube link, you would put the link for the video here, share it, and that would share the video with everybody on the server at the same time from the main Jitsi server, not from your computer. And the nice thing about that is everybody's watching the video at the same exact time, and the bandwidth is good. So this is a really nice feature. One last thing I'll touch upon here is the ability to mute everyone. Now, if you choose not to mute everybody at the beginning of the meeting, then you can do it here. If everybody's talking over top of one another and you want to try and gain control of the meeting, go ahead and click mute everyone. So that gives you a pretty brief overview of the features of Jitsi, and I can't tell you how awesome it is to be able to do all of this for free. Now, there is another way that you can run a Jitsi server. Obviously, this is the free and public way to do it. I don't know for how long 8x8 will be offering this type of service because, again, they're donating their servers for as long as this pandemic lasts and people are in need of it. But there eventually will come a time when they start to, switch off some of those servers, probably as the demand starts to wane. But nevertheless, since this is free and open source software, anybody can create their own Jitsi Meet server. I've even done it myself. This is my own. And you can see I've already had some meetings in here with some of the different groups in my parish. So there are different things that you can do online to make use of the tools that are available. And I just can't be more enthused about Jitsi Meet. So there you have it, a responsible option for video conferencing online, Jitsi Meet. I hope you found this helpful. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about the church's teaching on the sanctity of life and the responsible use of what's available to us today, especially in the modern world. We have all these wonderful means of communication, like using Jitsi. So how can we use that responsibly? Some of the principles behind the sanctity of life. First of all life is sacred, right? Because all life comes from God. All human life is made in the image and likeness of God. So therefore, there's an inherent dignity in every human life. And we believe as Catholics that life begins at the moment of conception, right? And we're not talking about a blob of cells here. We're talking about God's miraculous work in the womb. Remember, in the book of Jeremiah, God says to him, "Before I knit you in your mother's womb, I knew you." God knit him in his womb. He knit us in our own mother's wombs. And this is a process. All life is a process, just like our life journey is a process, right? We're going through life. We learn new things. We develop understanding and wisdom. And that's a process. The same thing is happening right now in the womb of mothers throughout the world. It's a process of growing and becoming and getting closer to the point of being born. All right, but from the very moment that conception takes place, that is a human life, and that has dignity. And so therefore, we try to uphold the dignity to the best of our ability by praying against the evils of abortion, which is truly killing. If that life begins at conception, then the removal of that life prematurely is the killing of that life. And so we have the fifth commandment that very clearly states, "Thou shalt not kill." And then we also have the greatest commandment given to us by Jesus, that we should love God and love our neighbor. Now, if we're to love God, then we should recognize God in our neighbor, because all of us are made in the image and likeness of God. Even so-called blob of cells in the womb. That's not a blob of cells. That is a human life that is forming and growing and going to become someone in the world. All right, so we want to make sure that person has every chance. And with respect to using like technology, for instance, the tools at our disposal in a responsible way, I want to share with you a little something from the Pastoral Constitution on the Church in the Modern World, which comes to us from the Second Vatican Council. And this is just a short excerpt that basically says, "The Church is the guardian of the deposit of God's Word, from which are drawn the principles of the religious and moral order. Without always having a ready answer to every question, the church desires to integrate the light of revelation with the skilled knowledge of mankind, so that it may shine on the path which humanity has lately entered. In other words, this document is calling us to use the tools that we have at our disposal in the modern world, in this modern age of technology and science and all these things, gizmos and gadgets. Use them in a way that is mindful that all good comes from God. And most especially, highlighting the Word of God, which is really what I seek to do with this channel. Highlight the Word of God, that it is Jesus who speaks to us through reason, through faith, and through the Gospels. And that he does so in a special way to call all of us to follow him in a more faithful and reverent way, and to live out our lives in a holy way. And to do that, we need to make good and responsible decisions, most especially about the technology that we use. So I hope that you've learned something today. And if so, please give me a thumbs up, and I will look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks so much, and may the Lord give you his peace.